So, this whole season is going to be the Coach K farewell tour. Like, oh, yeah, the greatest college coach of all time. He probably is. And they're going to roll the red carpet for him, and everything's going to be about his legacy. But I honestly believe, and this is what's going to make it so great, that I really believe Kentucky will win that game. And it's going to be so awesome for us to be able to start off the Coach K retirement tour with us kicking his butt in Madison Square Garden.
Welcome to Friends in the Corner podcast, stories and topics from around Kentucky. I'm your host, Dan, coming to you from beautiful Lexington, and happy to be with you guys again for another episode of Friends in the Corner. Thank you for being patient this month, as we didn't really stick to our traditional monthly schedule as we wanted to, but hey, a wedding will kind of throw you off your schedule just a little bit, but it's all good. Happy to be back with you guys again for another episode, and especially this time of year as we are welcoming in the fall season. You can feel it, the coolness in the air is perfect for Kentucky Keeneland weather, football weather, and just around the corner here, we're going to be starting Kentucky basketball as well. And that's what today's episode is dedicated to. We're going to be previewing the 2021-2022 Kentucky basketball season. And to do this, I'm welcoming on an old voice to the show, Mr. Andrew Williams. Andrew's going to catch us up with what he's been doing down in his native grounds of Harlan County. And we're going to talk about a little bit about what we can expect for this upcoming season for Kentucky basketball. Kind of talk about what happened last year, but really focus towards the future this year. And I gotta say, the stars looking bright for this Kentucky basketball season. So I'm excited to have Andrew back on the show. And I say, without further ado, let's get right into it. Previewing the Kentucky basketball season, Andrew Williams. All right, well, we are welcoming back on one of our all-time favorite voices to the show, one of the unsung heroes in Kentucky radio around the state, Mr. Andrew Williams of Harlan County. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, man. I've it's been we've not talked in a while. I've missed being able to come on. It's a lot going on in life. A lot of stuff. Just like we talked about a few minutes ago, a lot of stuff, local radio, stuff like that. Being a dad. Just blessed to be with my family. It's been a tough last year and a half for everybody, but I'm really happy just to be able to still doing what we're doing and being able to talk together and for us being healthy and being blessed.
Absolutely, man. And, the last time we had Andrew on, we did a little special last summer when the NBA returned from the pandemic to the bubble. Since then, we've had two NBA champions. We've had the Lakers and we've had Giannis and the Bucks, man. So a lot's happened in the NBA since we last talked.
Yeah, that was crazy. I was looking at something the other day, and they had talked about that. It was like 2 nights ago, and the Lakers were playing because I'm a LeBron guy, obviously. And it said that the Lakers won the championship a year ago, 2 nights ago. That felt, because there's been two seasons in a year, and that feels like it was 10 years ago that the Lakers won the championship in the bubble. But it's just been a year ago. So yeah, there's been a lot going on in the NBA, and the Lakers had an eventful off season, and they're 0-2 up to this point. But they play again tonight, and hopefully they'll be able to right the ship.
All right. Well, we'll see. They've added some firepower this last year with Westbrook and Carmelo and all those guys. So maybe they'll turn the nose back up here for you.
I hope so.
I have no dog in the fight as far as NBA goes. I guess I'm kind of a Phoenix fan because of Booker, but hey, go or LeBron. He's from my home state, so I got to root for him a little bit.
Yeah, I just roll with. I know people don't like this, but I just roll with LeBron pretty much wherever he's at. So wherever he goes, I'm going with him. I started with him when he came into the league because I was a fan of his in high school. So I just kind of migrate with him wherever he goes. And I know people don't like that, but that's my NBA fandom.
So you've got a closet full of Cavs and Heat gear that's not coming out recently.
I do actually. I have in the corner of my closet, I've got the multiple Cavs LeBron jerseys for both of his run. I got my Miami Heat LeBron jerseys. Now I got my Lakers. So I'm actually wearing my Lakers hoodie tonight. So, I got whichever team he's going to, that's who I'm sticking with.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, Andrew, it's great to have you back on. And you were kind of touching on a little bit what you've been up to in the last year, but kind of tell my listeners what's been going on, man. What's life been like for this teacher radio personality over the last year?
Yeah, well, obviously I'm a teacher. School was a little weird last year with the pandemic. A lot of online education that was hard for the kids. But I thought our school district did a really good job, and my wife and I are both teachers, so it was tough. We'd also, we got a 2-year-old daughter, and raising her during the pandemic, not being able to get out very much, that was kind of tough as well. But we made it through it, and I don't think I could have made it through it without them. That my wife, my daughter, and my foundation, so they're great. But on beside of that, I've had the opportunity here locally in my hometown to do. I've done a lot of radio. I do play-by-play radio for the football team and multiple sports teams, and then we've got a couple of sports shows that run on the radio here. So I've had the opportunity to stay busy, and hopefully I know a ton of people. More people are listening to podcasts and stuff, but actually around here in my area, where it's a smaller area, a lot of people listen to the radio. So we've actually had a pretty good numbers for people listening to the stuff that we're putting out, and local sports here are huge. So just being able to do that's been really exciting for me. And me, Dan, like I don't ever shut up. So like it's just good. I get platforms to run my mouth and talk about stuff that I love. So it's been awesome.
What's so for the listeners' sake, if they want to find you online, like on iHeartRadio or wherever you guys might be streaming at, what's the radio line there?
Yeah, we're on WTUKradio.com is where you can hear our live stuff. We go on I'm always on Friday nights doing football on WTUKradio.com. They have YouTube where you can listen as well. Then on Wednesday nights we do a sports show, and you can find the WTUK YouTube page, or you can go to WTUKradio.com.
All right, WTQ Radio to listen to all of Andrew Williams' hot takes on Kentucky and local sports. But Andrew, exactly. It's happy to have you back on, man, as I was mentioning, and we're getting ready to talk about our favorite thing in the world, Kentucky sports, and we're going to be focusing a lot on basketball today. But before we start talking about basketball, we're not just a basketball school anymore.
No.
We're an everything school, it seems like. We've got this past year a volleyball national championship with the women's team. Well, I think we don't have a men's team, so we have a volleyball championship.
Yeah.
And then Kentucky football is 6-1, and as we're recording, it's the bye week. So Kentucky had a little break after a big loss from Georgia, but even still, after a loss like that, it's pretty good to be a Kentucky football fan right now.
For me personally, it's the best. It's been so crazy because I never thought we could get to this level. Like I never thought, there were times throughout, like I've been a Kentucky fan since I've been born. So that's just always, and I've had to go through the terrible years. And
we were both in college during the Joker.
Yeah.
The Joker.
We were in school for some of the worst years, and I've went through it. And I, as a Kentucky fan, I'm realistic, and so I've always realized, all right, we're probably not going to win an SEC championship. We're probably not going to the college football playoff. So my thought was always, all right, can we just get up to a bowl game every year? Can we get 6-6, 7-5 every year? And I'll be happy. Like as a fan, I'm happy. And I never thought that we could get to the level that I feel like kind of we're inching towards now. And this year we're 6-1. I wasn't even that disappointed from the Georgia game, to be honest, because like Georgia is the best team in the country, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And their front seven is dominant. And Kentucky scored twice, and like that's more points than Georgia has allowed this year. And we actually left some points on the field. So like we went to Georgia, we fought hard. I thought it was a good run for the football team. But now like we're 6-1, we're at the bye week. And then what's crazy is we have a realistic opportunity to go 11-1 this year. And not only that, if you go 11-1, let's say Alabama loses one more time, because that's what Kentucky kind of needs. If Alabama loses one more time, Kentucky will probably have a legitimate argument at 11-1 to say we deserve a playoff spot. That for me is absolutely insane.
Absolutely. I mean, it's going to be kind of interesting to see how the rest of this year pans out. I'm a little nervous because when I guess I'm a little skeptical when it comes to Kentucky football. We can't have it too good. And we've got Mississippi and Tennessee coming up with Mississippi, not the best team, but they have gotten one up on us a lot. They're usually a team we struggle against.
Yeah, we've not went there and won a game since 2008.
Yeah,
which is kind of crazy. But I say all that to say, as a realistic Kentucky fan, I think we'll probably will drop another one. I don't know what that one will be, but I mean, it might be at Mississippi State, or it might be one of Tennessee or Louisville. But even to get to 10-2 would be a crazy accomplishment for this team. Because I'm looking, I've watched, and I love college football. I've watched college football. I legitimately think, and I'm not trying to be a homer, but I legitimately think that Kentucky is a top 10 team this year. Like what, even the lower portion of the top 10, that's fine. But I think there's one dominant team in college football, that's Georgia. And then I think there's a lot, like Alabama's not as good as they usually are. I think their offense is really good. Their defense is not as good. But I mean, I think there's one dominant team, and then 2 through 10, I think is pretty even. And I think Kentucky's at a legitimate top 10 team. And so like I'm just excited. Like I'm just riding the wave of emotion, just being excited to know that, hey, what we're doing now is something I never thought we could do.
Yeah. I've seen some projections, and these are all hearsay about us getting in a New Year's Six Bowl, maybe facing someone like Oklahoma, calling it the Stoops Bowl. So we'll see how that goes. So.
Yeah, some people are saying the Peach Bowl, or maybe if you go and the Peach Bowl will be great. The Sugar Bowl is there, depending on what happens with Alabama. Maybe even the Fiesta Bowl. To be in one of those bowl games would be crazy, and it's just exciting, man, because for other teams, like if Alabama misses the playoffs, they're ready to fire their coach and burn down Tuscaloosa. But if Kentucky can even talk, like we're at the bye week and we're talking about it, like Stoops is getting a statue. You know what I mean? So it's exciting, man. It's exciting.
Yeah, it's a great time to be a Kentucky basketball fan because, man, I think about it. 10 years ago, it was so different. Kentucky football was just nothing. We were 2-10 seasons, and we were struggling. Now here we are, 1-16. But also, ironically enough, that same year, 10 years ago, Kentucky won a national championship, and look where we are now. So on a rebuild year.
Yeah, it's I don't know, man. It's the tides are turning, and it's absolutely crazy as what's going on. But what you talked about though in the athletic department, the volleyball team wins the national championship. We've had success in several other sports. We're going to talk about it a little bit later, but I think the basketball team is going to rebound in a big way this year. And Kentucky is legitimate. I mean, that athletic program, since me and you have been in school, has improved so much. And that's really a testament to Mitch Barnhart and the athletics department that he's built at Kentucky. And I know there's some things that Mitch does and I don't even like, but I think overall he's done a phenomenal job at building that program. And there's multiple sports that are competing at high levels. Every sport you look at, whether it's soccer, volleyball, rifle, we had multiple athletes in the Olympics get gold medals.
Yeah.
And we're there. Like you'll always see us in the top 25 in those sports. And to me, man, that it's exciting to know that, we can have pride in our college and know that they're doing, because Kentucky's always been a basketball school, but to know that we're doing things in different sports, that's a big source of pride for everybody that went there.
100%. It is awesome to see Kentucky recognized worldwide, like you were talking about in the Olympics and everything else. So we're Very proud of our alma mater. Still paying the school back to this day, 8 years later of being out. But
we'll be for a long time.
Yeah, but but as we start transitioning to talk about Kentucky basketball, we do want to talk about this upcoming season. But I feel like we do need to get the ugly out of the way and talk about last year and kind of what happened with that year. It just felt like that team, for as talented as they were not able to get on the same page and were not able to find what their identity was. And they missed the tournament because of it. So kind of talking a little bit about last year, what were your thoughts on how things went last year for Kentucky?
Well, like first of all, I think, and I'm not saying it was because of this, but something that was interesting was that the blue bloods, like your Kentucky, your Duke, your Carolina, those teams all struggled during the COVID year. So I think that there's something there that there's probably that consistent that'll help you understand why that happened. I think a lot of those programs they depend on getting really high touted freshmen. They depend on really high fan support. And, okay, so first on the freshman thing, Kentucky brings in BJ Boston and Terence Clark. And, obviously terrible tragedy that happened to Terence Clark. So that was a terrible end to that. But Kentucky brings in BJ Boston and Terence Clark. And those guys, the first little bit that they don't get to campus until late. And when they get to campus, they pretty much have to stay in their dorm rooms. They don't get the fan experience. They don't have the fan support at home. I think that really affected them. I really do. I'm not saying that's to blame, but I think that when you have freshmen that are coming in, they need that early start. They need the workouts in the summer. They need the hype train of Big Blue Madness. They need to see the fans. They need all that stuff because that helps you get through some of those bumps that you take, early in the year with a young team. And they never, I mean, you can watch that team all last year. They never just found their footing. There was never one time that you look and thought, all right, they're turning the corner. And that's weird because like every Cal team that we've watched, there was a point, even if they struggled, you could look and remember a point and think, all right, they're turning the corner. I remember back in the Nerlens Noel year when they went to the NIT, that there was a game against Ole Miss where Nerlens Noel had like 11 blocks and they looked great. And I thought, okay, they're turning the corner. Like here's the moment where they started to play better than Nerlens Noel tears his ACL, then they're done.
Yeah.
But last year there was just never a time when I thought, man, they're turning the corner. And there was just some guys. Boston really struggled all year. Clark was out most of the year. Olivier Sarr just wasn't really what I kind of think that we anticipated. He didn't really fit in the system. Keon Brooks didn't get his start until late on the year. The guy that was our best player was Davion Mintz, and I love Davion Mintz. I'm really glad he's back this year. But if Davion Mintz is your best player, I don't think you can be great with him as your best player. Now, if he's your third best player, your fourth best player, it's a little bit different. But that it was just a really weird year. They never really found their footing, and I think the freshmen like the type of freshmen that Cal's used to getting, I don't think that those guys were kind of on that level last year, and I think that's a lot of the reasons that they struggled.
Yeah, and one thing you kind of mentioned, and you talked about a lot of the different stop and goes that happened because of COVID. But one big thing about playing at Kentucky is Rupp Arena and a full 22,000 fans there. And did they have any fans last year? I can't remember. Or was it a limited crowd or?
Yeah, towards the end of the year, I think it was limited crowd. I think that was some of it, but most of the year it was nobody. And you could tell, man, in those. I mean, there's some games that are in Rupp when you start to rally back and the crowd gets into it and they kind of just wheel the team to a win, and that just was never able to happen last year. And I do think that played a big part in it.
Absolutely. And well, we'll shut that chapter of Kentucky basketball. Call it just what it is, the COVID year. And and move on to the next one here. And we're kind of getting this new season here started. And you talked about freshmen, and we're going to be talking about a few of the new freshman faces. But one thing I wanted to ask you, Andrew, when you look at this roster, something I kind of notice is while there is some star-studded freshmen on the team, there's also a lot of older faces that are coming, whether that's Allen, who's returning, and Mintz that's returning. But also we got transfers like Wheeler coming in and stuff. And so it's kind of interesting because I remember a few years ago where Cal's team was all freshmen, all starting five were freshmen. And now as he progresses in his career, it seems like he's starting to move away from just leaning strictly on talent freshmen, and he's starting to get more experienced players coming in. Do you kind of see that trend happening? And do you think like that's kind of like a sense of urgency for Cal? Like, all right, I need to try something different.
Yeah, so like I think it's a couple of things. Like, although I think last year was a terrible year, I also think it's the best thing that could have happened to Cal. Because if you watch Cal's career, Cal's very stubborn. He is. He's set in his way. Like you just listen to him talk, which I mean, he has reason to be. When you're a Hall of Fame coach, it's hard to tell you anything. You know what I mean? And so like Cal's been very stubborn, and that's been a good thing because it's gotten to where he's at. But last year was so bad that it required him to say, okay, something is not working. We have to make changes. And where it started at, I think that you saw it start with his new assistant coaches. Like he goes and gets in the offseason, he brings back Orlando Antigua. He goes and gets Chin Coleman, who's this big time recruiter out of Illinois. He does that. That's something that you've not seen Cal do a lot. He's not changed assistant coaches very much in his tenure here at Kentucky. But the other big thing that happened was this transfer portal thing. So you had like, okay, now the NCAA says, all right, everybody has one time that they can transfer. You don't have to set out. And you saw all of these guys, and not just like fringe guys, like really good guys saying, I don't want to be at my school anymore. I want to put my name in the hat and I want to go somewhere else. And so I think I think what Cal realizes is that his best team he ever had was a mixture of really good freshmen and really good veterans. That was the 2012 team. That was the 2015 team. That was the 2010 team. Okay, so you look at the national championship team. Obviously, you got Anthony Davis, Michael Kidd-Gilchrist. But on that team, you have Darius Miller, you have Terence Jones. So you have a good mix of freshmen and leadership seniors. The 2010 team, John Wall Cousins, Patterson, right? Like it's a good mix. 2015, you have Carl Towns, Devin Booker, but you also have the Harrison twins and Willie Cauley-Stein. And so like, I think Cal realizes like, hey, listen, I need to go get the top-notch guys. Like I need to get the highest recruits. But now that this transfer portal's open, I also need really good veterans that can bring this together. And so you saw it. He brought back Mintz. Brooks is back as a junior. And then you also get Severe Wheeler, who is first team All-SEC. You get Kellen Grady, who was a star at Davidson. You get Oscar Sheboy, who is a star at West Virginia. And I think that he realizes the perfect formula is really good freshmen and really good veteran leadership. And you bring those two things together, and that's the recipe for a national championship.
So as we kind of start diving into this new roster this year, as we mentioned, a lot of old faces, whether they be from here or other schools on this team. Who are some of your guys you're most interested in seeing and what they're going to contribute?
Yeah, I'm going to start with a freshman. Like I think there's a freshman that is a lot better than I think even some of the national people think, and that's Ty Washington, who is the freshman point guard that I think, he was once committed to Creighton. He backed out of that commitment. Cal got him to commit to Kentucky. And, I from what I hear from the practice reports and stuff that you read, like even all the players, what they've said at Media Day, Ty-Ty's a star. Like he is a star. He's going to be a star. You can see it with his endorsement deals. Like he's getting some crazy endorsement deals right now through NIL. And so I'm really excited about him. But I mean, I'm really excited. I mean, Severe Wheeler is a name that a lot of people I don't think knows, but he was voted first team preseason All-SEC. he's a guy that is just a true point guard. Really good passer. He's only like 5'8", 5'9", but he's a very, very good passer. And I think that he's going to do a great job at kind of leading the team on offense and being kind of like the coach on the floor. Oscar Sheboy from the Blue White game the other night had like 25 points and 20 rebounds or something like that. He's a big guy from West Virginia. He's a true like low post big guy, huge body, like just really it's going to be hard to grab rebounds from him. And then you got, Keon Brooks, who's coming back, I think will be improved. Kellen Grady, who's a really good 3-point shooter and, was a double-digit scorer at Davidson. And then you look on our bench, man, our bench is loaded as well. You're bringing back Dante Allen. You got Damian Collins and Bryce Hopkins, who are freshmen. There's a lot of talent there on that roster. I think, this is one of the deepest teams. You've got 11 or 12 guys that I think legitimately say, all right, I can play. And that's not even talking about Davion Mintz. I forgot to mention him. But this is a loaded roster.
Some people were tweeting the other day from the blue and white game that it may be the return of the platoon system.
Yeah, the thing is like, CJ Frederick, who transferred in from Iowa, he's a knockdown shooter. He's not even really been practicing yet because he had a leg injury. Jacob Toppin, who is Obi Toppin's brother that plays for the Knicks. He is
from UD, baby.
Yeah, super high flyer. And is somebody that he's like 6'8". He's going to be able to play multiple positions, guard multiple positions on the court. Cal won't say it, but I really think that this is his deepest team since that 2015 team. And if everybody's playing, it really is kind of a return to the platoon type thing because the platoon worked. I know we lost, but like we was 38-1. That platoon really worked. And so I think that this is the type of team that you could do that with again because there's so much talent and they're so deep.
Let's talk about Dante Allen for a little bit because I know Dante Allen has a lot of fan support because he's a local guy. He's from Hamilton County. What kind of contribution do you see Allen playing this year?
I'm worried about Dante, to be honest with you. And the reason being is because first of all, just to be honest, I don't think Cal has ever been super high on Dante Allen. Like from the things that Cal has done, Cal's really been bullish about not playing Dante Allen. Now, if you remember last year, Cal got threw out of a game, and Bruiser Flint was the coach for the rest of the game. It was at Mississippi State, and Dante Allen single-handedly won that game for Kentucky. He is an amazing shooter. I think he really frustrates Cal on defense. But I'm worried this year about Dante Allen. And the reason I'm worried is because we are so talented once again. And I don't think Cal is super high on him. And I'm worried that he might fall back down to the end of the bench in the lower part of that rotation. Now, the thing that I do think works in his favor is that I do think Cal is going to want to, he's never really been a guy that shoots a ton of threes. Their offense has never really been set up that way. But I do think Cal is looking to change that a little bit. And so I think that Dante Allen will get his chance. My opinion, and I could be wrong. I think one of either Dante Allen or CJ Frederick is going to get that spot. And they're going to come off the bench and they're going to be the 3-point guy. Like they're going to be the shooter. And the other one, I don't think will play much. And I think that you'll see early on in the year who that's going to be. So whoever's hitting shots is the guy that I think will play. And the other one, because I think their talents are kind of redundant. Mm-hmm. They're both 3-point shooters that you're not going to get a bunch of defense from. They don't drive the hole very much. Like that's just not really their game. So I think one of those guys is really going to stick, and the other one's going to fall at the end of the bench.
So did they kind of remind you of like a Deron Lamb or Devin Booker type of role?
Yeah. I think, you know, Duran probably more so because Booker could do some more things. Um, Duran was such a good shooter. He shot like 43% from the 3-point line in that 2012 year, which is absurd.
Yeah.
And that was kind of his role. I do kind of see them in that role. Maybe not as good as Duran, but both of those guys, being able to space the floor and being just like a knockdown shooter. And that's a luxury that I don't think Cal has very much. Is just a guy that you can put in and say, all right, if he's open, he's making that shot. And, there's been a couple of those guys, like you think maybe, Jamal Murray was maybe one of those guys. Malik Monk was maybe one of those guys. Definitely Lamb, Booker. But, I mean, there's not been a ton of those guys in the history of Cal's tenure here. But I think he's got a couple on this team, and I think that's really exciting.
Turning to a few other players we'll talk about here real quickly. I know when we were talking about last year, you were talking, well, Brooks and Mintz got really late starts into developing what we want. Now that they've had that experience, do you think they're going to come back a little stronger this year in certain ways?
Well, I'm really high on both of them. I really expect a breakout year from Keon Brooks. I think he's a really smart guy. Like he knows how to play the game. His athleticism is different. He's a very athletic guy. He's got some range, so he's going to play the power forward. He's going to play the forward, but he's got some range, so he can bring the defense out. He can shoot threes a little bit. He's a strong kid. I think that he'll be a double-digit scorer, and I think he's somebody that you'll see a big-time jump from because I really think he wants to play in the NBA. And for him to do that, this year is probably going to be the year that, all right, are you going to do it? Like, this is kind of his year to prove that he can do that. Davion Mintz is somebody that is just so consistent. You're going to get the same thing from him every night. He's a very high IQ player. He shoots the ball really well. He plays hard defense. He's a team leader. He can do all of these things. And for me, Davion Mintz is going to be the glue that holds this all together. That's why I was so happy that he came back because I feel like he's kind of the leader, and I think he's going to be the glue that holds everything together this year. So I think that we need both of those guys to reach the level that we're trying to get to, and I expect both of them to have just really phenomenal years.
I agree that kind of this feels like this is going to be their team. Like this is going to be the leaders. They'll be that Darius Miller type of figure for this team.
Me too. I
want to talk a little bit about the schedule because this year's schedule is pretty fun to say the least. Looking at the non-conference and even the in-conference because SEC is basketball is not a joke anymore. It's a pretty legit conference, man. And I know we're SEC supposed to be the football kings, but I mean, we've got Tennessee ranked, Auburn ranked, Arkansas just made an Elite Eight appearance. So, I mean, the SEC is a lot more challenging of a conference than I guess you would have said a while back.
Yeah, no, I think it's been the improvement of coaches. I think there are some really good coaches in the SEC right now. I don't think that was the case, a couple of years ago. I think, first of all, I think Rick Barnes has done a really good job at Tennessee, kind of starting with his. They've been recruiting at a level that Tennessee's never recruited at, and so I think they're really good. And that, Rick Barnes has kind of dominated Cal in their matchups, which is kind of weird. But Rick Barnes has done very well against Cal teams. You have Eric Musselman at Arkansas, who I think does just a really, really good job. I like him a lot. I think Arkansas will legitimately be around for a long time. The Alabama coach slips my mind, but you have Bruce Pearl at Auburn.
My boy.
He's been good for a really long time. I like Bruce Pearl. And so I think the SEC has gotten better because I think the coaching has gotten a lot better. And I think it will continue to be a really tough conference just because, and you're starting to see some changes, like some of the older coaches in other conferences are leaving, and you're seeing a younger type of coach come into to some of these teams. And so I think the ACC is going to be really competitive for a long time. And it's exciting because when, the knock has always been like Kentucky gets really, has really high win totals, but they always say, oh, the ACC is a weak conference. Well, now if Kentucky can win at a high level and they do so with, the ACC being a stronger conference, it just improves our strength of schedule. And it makes it, we can honestly say, all right, we deserve a 1 seed instead of having to argue about the ACC being a weak conference.
Absolutely. Definitely tougher road than it used to be for Kentucky and the SEC, and lots of, like you said, great coaches that we've seen over the last year. And even outside the SEC, we've got a pretty competitive schedule set up here. So our first official game, we've got a few preseason games coming up, or exhibition.
Yeah.
Not gimme games coming up, but November 9th, we play Duke, and Duke is kind of in a similar role to us. They're in a rebuild year, kind of like we were. They missed a tournament just like us. So what's your thoughts on Duke? Right now in the AP, Duke's number 9 and we're number 10. So this is kind of all right, who's improving this year type of matchup.
So one thing, so honestly, here's my thoughts. I'm going to look at this from 2 different ways. I'm going to look at it from Duke's perspective, then I'll look at it as the game. Duke is, as a team, I think Kentucky's better. Like, as a full team, I think top to bottom, Kentucky's deeper. I know that Duke team pretty well. I think Kentucky's deeper, and so that's it. I think Duke has the best player. When those 2 teams match up, I think Duke has the best player, and that's freshman Paulo Banchero. He's got a legitimate chance to be the number 1 pick in the draft this upcoming year, and I think he's going to be phenomenal. Like, I think he is. He plays power forward. He's a 4. He can shoot threes. He does everything that you want him to do. I think he'll be an NBA All-Star one day. Like, there's no doubt in my mind that he is going to be special. And so, I think, but, Kentucky, I think will be able to negate some of that because we have such a big front line being able to guard him. So I think Kentucky is a better team than Duke is, but I think Duke will have the best player on the court that night. The thing that I'm really excited about is this, because I do hate Duke. They're my least favorite team in the country. This is Coach K's last year, and the media already like freaks out about Coach K anyways. Anything that he does, he is the savior of college basketball to the media. They love that guy, and this is his last year. So, this whole season is going to be the Coach K farewell tour. Like, oh, yeah, the greatest college coach of all time. He probably is. But they're going to say the greatest college coach of all time. And they're going to roll out the red carpet for him, and everything's going to be about his legacy. And during that game on November the 9th, they're going to show the Leitner shot, and they're going to do the whole thing about how special Coach K's career is. But I honestly believe, and this is what's going to make it so great, that I really believe Kentucky will win that game, and it's going to be so awesome for us to be able to start off the Coach K retirement tour with us kicking his butt in Madison Square Garden. Like, I'm going to be so happy that we start off the Coach K farewell tour with a big L on the national spotlight on November 9th. So I think it'll be a really exciting game. But I really think Kentucky's just a better team, and I do think we'll win that game. But I think there's going to be a lot of eyes on that game because there's going to be so much talent on both sides of the court. It's going to be the Coach K farewell tour, and also, both those teams missed the tournament last year, so both of them are looking to rebound, like you said. And I think it's going to be really exciting.
And I'll be honest, I've not really looked too much into Duke's roster, so I don't know. Are they pretty similar in some circumstances to Kentucky? Like, and you said they've got one of the top freshmen in the country, but do they have returning players and some transfers too?
That they do have some returning players and some transfers. I think the biggest thing is they're not as deep as Kentucky. I think Paulo Banchero will be their leading scorer, and I really think he'll be good, man. I just am super I really thought Kentucky was going to get that kid. We were leading for him at one point, and he ends up going to Duke, which disgusts me. But I don't think they're as deep as Kentucky is. They got some good shooters, like Joey Baker's a good shooter, and they got some good pieces. But I think this Duke team is more of a middle of the top 25 type team, like 15, 16. I think that's kind of where I think of maybe like our year when we had Euless and Murray, we were good, but we weren't great. I kind of consider that Duke team to be around that same tier.
All right. Well, November 9th is when Duke, I was going to say kick off against Kentucky, but I guess shoot off against Kentucky.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
November 9th is the Duke game. And November 12th, I've got this game circled because this is a redemption game in some ways for us, for those of us who got to be in college during the 2013 season, the NIT year. We're playing Robert Morris here at home. Now, I know there's no one on the roster that was from that time, but do you think Cal's kind of look at this game like, okay, it's time for a little payback?
Yeah, and if you remember, like Cal's from that place where Robert Morris is. It's Moon Township, Pennsylvania.
Yeah,
like
outside Pittsburgh. Yeah,
that's where Robert Morris is, and that's where Cal's from. I mean, if guys like Cal, I think they remember everything. You know what I mean? Like you read stories about athletes and coaches who just remember every time they had a loss and every time they felt slighted and all that stuff. And Cal remembers that stuff. Like it was what 8 years ago that we lost at Robert Morris, but Cal remembers those things, and I'm sure he wants to bring them in as a favor to his hometown. But also, he wants to beat them by 30. I'm sure just to remind them, like, hey, listen, you had your moment 8 years ago, but we're Kentucky and you're Robert Morris, and that's how this hierarchy works in college basketball. So I'm sure Cal will be looking to remind them of who the top dog is.
Absolutely. Well, the next game I've got circled here to talk about, we've talked about revenge games against Robert Morris, competition against Duke, but December 22nd, we play our favorite team from the west of the state, Louisville. I don't know much about what Louisville's situation is right now with Coach Mack and all that stuff. Hopefully they're better than their football team. But what's your feelings about us playing? I think it gets Louisville's playing here. They're playing at Rupp this year.
Yeah, they had some more. Turmoil in the off season. Chris Mack is suspended for the first 6 games of the year, and he actually comes back against Kentucky. I think that might be his first game back. He got one of the assistant coaches got charged for extortion. It's always something with Louisville, man. They're always in the midst of some type of scandal, and that continues on this year. I think the crazy thing about Chris Mack is that he's kind of underwhelmed in his tenure as coach at Louisville. I think a lot of people expected them to be in kind of like to get back to where they were with Pitino, and he's kind of underwhelmed. Like they've had some okay teams, but nothing that's really on that Louisville tier that you're used to when Pitino was there. I think that Kentucky should win that game. I think Kentucky will be a lot better than Louisville. Louisville, I think, is probably a lower end of the top 25 team this year if they even reach that point. They got a transfer, I think, that's talented. They've got some young talent there, but I just don't think they're at the level that Louisville fans kind of expect them to be at. And that's one of those games. It's always fun because it's a rivalry game, but that's a game that I would also expect Kentucky to win. That game's at home, correct? Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. So Rupp will be loud and crazy. I don't think Cal and Chris Mack really don't like each other. They had that whole thing last year with Chris Mack making that video saying that Cal was afraid to change the date or whatever, and that was all weird. And so, like I said, that's another one of those games. I think Cal's probably got that on his calendar circled, and that's one of those games that he wants to take it to Chris Mack and be like, "Hey, listen, bud, like your little brother. This is I run this state. This is how things go." And I think that'll be another game that Kentucky will definitely look to try to dominate.
Hey, any year where we can get a win in both football and basketball against Louisville, I'm happy with.
It's a good year. Yeah.
It's like you're already setting 2022 up for a good start. So the last non-conference game that I've got highlighted here is High Point. And that's going to be a big game because that's going to be, well, hopefully one we can crush, but also Tubby Smith is returning to Rupp. They're gonna honor Tubby Smith. They're gonna retire his jersey, which he didn't even play here. So, so I don't know. They're just gonna put his like sweater vest up under there or something. So, but okay, but hey, it's a big honor for Tubby, man. So, what's your thoughts on December 31st, New Year's Eve, with Tubby returning to Rupp?
Well deserved. It's well deserved. It's past due, actually. Tubby Smith was a great, great coach at the University of Kentucky. The first African American basketball coach in Kentucky history. He took that '98 team that was some of the Pitino holdovers after Pitino had left, and he took that '98 team. And if people remember, like that '98 team, they won the championship, but they weren't like super talented. That's a team: Jeff Shepard, Scott Padgett, Cameron Mills, Anthony Edwards. That was a good team, but I really think Tubby doesn't get the credit he deserves for winning that championship. And I really don't know. I don't know if Rick Pitino would have won the championship with that team. I think Tubby deserves all the credit for that team. Tubby was a great coach. Tubby early on in his tenure at Kentucky had a ton of success. I mean, a ton. Won multiple SEC championships. Was just an absolutely great coach all the way around. He had, there was, and then towards the middle of his run, the recruiting fell off a little bit. You look back at Kentucky during Tubby's time, though, and you think about what could have been, because there was a run in '03, I think it was '03, where Kentucky was the number one overall seed in the tournament, and they lose to Marquette in the Elite Eight, led by Dwayne Wade. And going into that game, Keith Bogans had a bum ankle, and Keith Bogans was the best player on that team for Kentucky. He played that game, but he wasn't very effective. And you think, man, what if Keith Bogans wouldn't have had that ankle injury? That's a team that possibly could have won the national championship. In another year, they were the number one overall seed, and they lost to UAB in the second round. We just got upset, and you think, what could have been there. Towards the end of his run, like I said, the recruiting fell off a little bit. And then, he had some 10-loss seasons, and people at Kentucky, man, it's tough because, when things start going downhill, if you can't right the ship quick, the fan base, we are great and we appreciate everything that everybody does for us. But, it's just like the LSU thing with Ed Orgeron. If you're not winning lately, then the fan base expects championships and Final Fours, and and if you're not getting there, and if you don't have the promise of getting there, then I think things fall off, really quick. And I think Tubby had his recruiting just fell off to a way that he wasn't going to be able to sustain the Kentucky job, and it got too much for me left for Minnesota. But he deserves to have his jersey or sweater, whatever, retired in the rafters. It's a really cool gesture by Kentucky. I'm glad that they're doing it. Shout out to Mitch Barnhart and Coach Cal for making that happen. But there's a lot of people that should have their jersey retired in Rupp that doesn't have their jersey retired yet. And I hope that we start to see that more frequently in the future.
Absolutely. And we're going to be coming back to one thing you mentioned about winning now. We're going to talk about here shortly, but finishing off the schedule, is there any other games that kind of engage you a little bit, I guess to say? Because there's also, we're playing at Kansas. We're playing at Arkansas, Tennessee twice. Is there any games that you're kind of like, all right, we're going to see how these come out later this year?
Man, at Kansas, at Fog Allen Fieldhouse is such a crazy place to play. That crowd is insane, and I love any time that we play there. It's always such a fun game because they do such a good job at filling that stadium. It's two blue bloods, and it's they're both wanting to win national championship. Kansas is really high ranked this year. That's going to be an amazing game. And then really, those ACC games like we talked about, the Tennessee games, because that normally around January, February is a time where you start to see Cal teams really find out who they are. and you start to see them start, winning the games and playing a more fun style of basketball. And so I'm really excited for that second half of the ACC schedule as we get closer to the ACC tournament, NCAA tournament, because that's kind of where you see these Cal teams kicking into high gear, and I want to see what they're made of at that time. And so there's a ton to be excited about on that schedule, but those are a couple of games that I'm looking forward to.
There's a lot of excitement on this schedule here. Some good basketball, hopefully. Now, with that being said, this upcoming year is the 10-year anniversary of when Cal won his first national championship in 2012 when we were there in college. And, I get a lot of flack online, Andrew. I don't know if you know this. I get called a Cal hater quite a bit.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I'm not a Cal hater, but I am a little exhausted, I guess you would say, as a fan, because now we're coming up to 10 years since our national championship. We've been out of school about 5 or 6 years now, man. I feel old as hell. I just turned 30. So, but nonetheless, with Cal, it always feels like so close yet so far away with winning championships. And now we've had all this success with these other programs, a volleyball national championship, a 6-1 football team with Stoops, and Stoops is now considered one of the top football coaches in the country. So with the success the program's already having, is there more pressure probably this year on Cal than any other season he's had, you feel?
Yeah, I think so. And one thing is too, because I can also get frustrated at Cal. And like I talked about earlier, his stubbornness is something I really get frustrated at because, none of us know basketball as good as Cal. He's been coaching for a long time. He's had a successful career at multiple stops. So I'm not trying to be a Monday morning quarterback and tell him, we should be doing this, we should be doing that. Man, I don't know. I'm not a basketball coach. That's what he gets paid to do. But there are some things that you can see as far as stubbornness, like lineup rotations, people that are playing, the way he builds a team sometimes, not having a shooter and not, you kind of feel like sometimes that he doesn't play a modern style of basketball as the game has switched more to like 3-point oriented play. That's something that Kentucky's never been really strong at is we don't have teams full of shooters like other teams do. You look at a team like Gonzaga, they got 7 or 8 guys that can let the ball fly, and they're shooting 35 to 40% from the 3-point line. Cal teams don't do that. He looks for athletic guys that play defense, and no knock on that. That's a great thing. But I think this stubbornness is something that becomes frustrating at times. And so I do think that there's pressure on him. The one caveat that I will say and that I'm happy about is I do think that he has made changes that I am excited about this offseason. And so I do think those changes do make me excited for the upcoming season. The first thing, I'm so happy to have Orlando Antigua back. I am. I'm just, it feels like a breath of fresh air. I feel like that our assistant coaching staff has been pretty weak since we lost Kenny Payne. You lose Kenny Payne to the Knicks, and he was a guy that was just a catalyst for Kentucky. And you had Joel Justice and Tony Barbie and Bruiser Flint, and those are Cal guys. But you saw the level of player that we were getting was dropping. We weren't getting the number one player anymore. We were getting the 15th, the 20th ranked player. And you can't win at the level we're trying to win at with all freshmen that are ranked in that area. It's not good enough because those guys were still leaving after a year and going to the draft, but they weren't being impactful at Kentucky. So I do think the two things that I'm really excited about that I've seen as far as a change, the number one thing is the new assistant coaches, bringing Orlando Antigua and Shane Coleman in. And you've seen our recruiting has already improved since we brought those guys back. And the second thing is I really do believe that Cal is changing his philosophy. I do think that we're going to see more of a open, we're spacing the floor out. And I do think this team will probably shoot more threes than Cal has in a very long time. I also like the way that we talked about earlier. He's getting some of these older guys and he's melding that with the younger talent, and I think that's a better recipe for success. So I'm still skeptical. I'm still not fully like, all right, Cal, I completely trust you again. You know what I mean? Like, I'm still not there, but I do feel better than I did at the end of last year.
Absolutely. Well, I'm optimistic this year that this will be a much better experience than what happened last year. So hopefully we got another championship in the cards, and we'll do it like the old days. We'll go party on State Street when they win the national championship. Are we? Yeah. I don't know if we're too old for that yet, but
we'll rub some icy hot on our arthritis and get back out to State Street and party like it's 2012.
And bring your daughter out there. So
exactly.
Well, as we start winding down here, Andrew, we've talked all about this season. We've talked about last season. And one thing we hit on earlier on was Terence Clark, who tragically lost his life earlier this year. And over this past year, well, it has been a tragedy. We've seen a lot of great tributes to him as well. The NBA drafting him, quote unquote. Yeah. Cal paid tribute to him at Big Blue Madness. So what's your feelings about these tributes, and what's your thoughts on the loss of a young kid like Terence Clark?
Yeah, it's really sad. Just to think of a kid, 19 years old, just to turn 19, had his whole life in front of him, and just to lose his life, it breaks my heart. As a dad, and having a young daughter, and knowing the feeling of having a child, I could never understand what his parents went through, what his family went through, and it was tragic to see a kid. You know, as a Kentucky fan, he's one of our own, but as a human being, to know that a kid who had so much life in front of him and had so many dreams of playing and doing something for his family and changing his their lives. It breaks my heart to see that. I think the tributes have been phenomenal. Adam Silver in the NBA, Boston Celtics, for calling his name out on draft night, and because he was from Boston, he was a Celtics guy. For them doing that, I think was really special. The Cal tribute, having his family at Big Blue Madness, I think was very special. And I really hope BJ Boston was there when all that happened. He was in the car in front of him, or the car behind him, one or the other. And I really hope that kid is able. I'm sure that's a lot of trauma for him. And I really hope that kid is able to just to bounce back and have a successful career in honor of Terence Clark's legacy. I hate that he didn't get to play a lot of last year, because a lot of people, I think, didn't really get to see what I thought was a really special kid. But you can see from a distance that his teammates really liked him. He seemed to have a really really infectious smile. He seemed to always be smiling and cheering on his teammates, and it breaks my heart that happened. And I hope that his family has been able to, just recover from that. I'm sure they'll never fully recover from that, but there's a lot of people that I'm sure will be playing to honor his legacy, and I'm sure there will continue to be tributes in his name, and it's deserved. And it just goes to a bigger point. I know we're talking sports, but I know it just goes to a bigger point. Man, you just got to be thankful for every moment that you got, and your time with your family. Every single day is a blessing. And, we get mad at these players when they don't perform, but these are human beings, and the coaches are human beings, and it's awesome being a fan. But you got to understand that these people, that they have lives and dreams and things that they want to accomplish. And we just all need to try our best to be positive and be thankful for the lives that we have, and to root people on and to lift them up, and to uplift people in our everyday lives. And I hope that puts things into perspective for a lot of us, because it's so easy to get caught up in our day-to-day lives and forget the what's going on in other people's lives. So great, kudos to all the people that've done tributes for him. And I hope that the Clark family has been able just to move on and live a legacy for Terence.
Well said, brother. I don't think we could have ended the show any better than that, man. So Andrew, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on to talk about the boys in blue. Thank you for your time, man.
Yeah, no, I'm excited, man. I'm up anytime you need me. I'm excited to talk. We got a long basketball season. We got NBA. We got a lot going on. So I love being on the show. It's always a fun time for me, and I can't wait to be back on, man.
Amen, brother. So remind my listeners where they can find you out online and where they can hear you on the radio.
Yeah, WWTUKradio.com. They got a YouTube stream. And I'm sure if you're listening to this, man, like I'm doing Harlan Green Dragon, 13th Region, 52nd District, Southeast Kentucky, football and basketball. And then we got a radio show on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10, a call-in show. You can call in 606-573-1051 is the number. You can call in and listen to my ridiculous takes and hear us talk about college football and college basketball and everything in between. So I appreciate all the love and support, and obviously you've got a great podcast, Dan, and I hope you continue to thrive. I'm excited. I'm already excited for the next time I'm able to hop back on with you.
Well, thank you, man. Well, I've made it 3 years so far, so God willing, I can keep it going.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.